I spent Tuesday reviewing insights I previously tabbed, underlined, and annotated throughout the second half of the story by Robert McKee. This allowed me to begin the week with a success. It provided me with ample notes to fuel research and inspiration as I begin my second draft of my untitled fantasy side adventure. I finally get to put the dust jacket back on story and put it away. I just wanted to go over my TBR for the rest of the year. I'm so excited. I hadn't really, I put reading on hold in 2021 since the summer, and I'm really just picking it back up with the book that I just finished. If you've been watching my videos, there's no need for me to repeat what the name of that book is, as you know. But currently, I am also looking forward to reading one more book that was on that same list of books from Will Smith's video of recommendations for screenplay writers. And obviously, I'm not writing a screenplay, but I would like to see my works eventually reach the screen and reach the movie-going audience. So I have 3 more books to finish out the rest of the year. And I'm not going to make a huge fuss. I might have said this already, but I'm not going to make a huge fuss if I don't finish them this year, because these are books that I was thinking I would keep on hold until the release of my first book. However, with going over my priorities until that time, I've realized that I think I can go ahead and at least read the first 2 of these before the year starts, because they're smaller, and yet with them being inspiration for the story that I'm writing, that always slows me down. And also, this isn't going to be my main focus, but I still want to give them my full attention when I read these. So I'll be giving these my full attention while I read them, but when I'm not reading them, I need to be going through all of my notes from the book that I just finished, the notes that I'll be making out of at least the very next book that I read, or the first one that I talk about here. And I also am going to be going through, sorry, my dog's walking around. I'm also going to be going through some assignments that that'll help me get to know my characters better. And those assignments are out of those notes that I created. So the first book here that I want to talk about, which is, like I said, recommended by Will Smith's books for screenwriters, and that is The Third Act by Drew Yano. You probably have heard me mention this book before, and how I wasn't sure if I wanted to read it yet, but I have decided that I want to start this book before the year's out, and it's definitely something I want to get into before I'm published. I wanted to talk about it first. I'm not sure if it's going to be the very next one I dive into, and I'll tell you why in a second. But this one, I'm really interested because it's supposed to be an entire book that tells you how to finish the end of your story. And since I'm done with my story and I know how it currently ends, I want to make sure that it holds up to the rules in this book. But the very next book that I'll probably do, dog yawn, but anyway, the very next book that I'll probably work on first is actually going to be the end of a series, which is Seed to Harvest by Dr. Butler, is what we call her here. So Dr. Butler writes these, you know, I don't have to tell you, but I've never finished this series, and what happens is I pick it up way too early. I'm not ready to read this whole thing. I know I'm not ready to read this whole thing, but I cannot wait to read it. So I keep picking it up, reading a book, and being like, oh, I'll get to it real soon. And here we are. I think I space out 6 months in between each book in here. And I'm finally in the last one, which was technically the first to be written, which is the Patternmaster. Okay? So basically, this book, it has been chronologically ordered in this collection of the series, but they were written in a different order, with Patternmaster being the first, and I believe Clay's arc. If I remember to, I will put the order list somewhere on the screen or in the description. But I don't know the actual order, but I am finishing with the chronological order of this book before I go into the next year. And they're relatively short, but they're also very impactful. And with this one in particular, I don't want to spoil this or my story. So it's not like this is so much like my story, but it definitely, there were some, at least one of these tabs, okay, are going to land on a page in which I read something and I was just like, that sort of, kind of, it doesn't happen exactly like that in my story, but it's like, wait a second. So that made me put it down for a while because I don't want it to be like influenced by this story at all. Now obviously it's not the same, okay? Like you can give 2 authors, you can give 100 people the same idea for a story and you're gonna get 100 different stories. So I'm not worried about mine being exactly like this, but I didn't even want to read too far in this series to figure out how Dr. Butler solves problems in this world, because I didn't want that to too heavily influence how I solve problems in my world until I already had these different ideas that expounded far enough that I know that I'm not stealing any ideas, basically. So my story's nothing like this. I know that. But I don't know. I don't even remember what it was. Probably this green sticky here, because I also had a color code back then. I'm scared to read it, but there was just something. I was just like, oh, yep. Not really. Well, kind of. Not really, okay? But it's just like some words. Like she said witches and breeding. And that's all I'm going to say. But that in itself is like saying a lot without saying anything. You can probably think up your own story idea and take it from there. Mine won't be anything like that. But it's like, ooh, I didn't want to read this book until I was sure mine was different enough. And so I'm excited because, like I said, these are shorter. I already started this one a few weeks ago, but I'm definitely going to start it over because this world also did not expand in the way that I thought whatsoever. Like, starting chronologically from this first story, which, you know, I just was like, okay, I see how this is going. It might end up being too much like mine. I might have to scrap the whole thing. And then by the time I get to Clay's arc, which if you've read this series, in chronological order, you know that Clay's arc takes you way further than these first 2 stories that I thought that, like, it was like Wild Seed went one direction, and Dr. Butler has this way of making me fall in love with characters that I expect to see again and then never letting me see them again. But they come up, kind of, sort of. So that's what I don't like about Dr. Butler's writing, but also it's very inspiring because it's something like what I wouldn't do. And she also has inspired my favorite authoress. My favorite author currently is N.K. Jemisin, and she is heavily inspired by Dr. Butler. So yeah, Dr. Jemisin and Dr. Butler here. So yeah, and Miss Jemisin, she has one series where I know for sure, because I finished it, where you follow the same characters from beginning to end, and that was the one that she won the awards for. She won awards for that series. So, Animal City around here. Am I on camera? Come look. Since you're coming. Am I on camera good?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Good.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. But yeah, it's a cat under my feet and a dog over there in my face. And you're looking good. Back to what I was doing. So, N.K. Jemisin also has another series in which I already know, not from having read, but having observed her talk about it in an interview, where she does this kind of Octavia Butler move where she shows us these characters, gets us involved, makes us love them, and then zooms ahead decades or centuries into the future, and then we see that. And her reason for doing it is because our main characters are not the humans in that story. Our main characters are these immortal beings, and those are who we are following. And obviously a human's life to them is so short that it's like of course we're not following those characters anymore. So I really like that. I'm only on the second book of that series, and I'm at the start of it, so I'm going to start that one over. But it's really, that first book had me shook as, and I might do a whole separate video just on that. So I'm like, I don't want to talk about it too much here. But while we're on the subject of Dr. Jemison, our final book that we want to at least start before the year's over. We might not finish this one for a few months, and that's okay because I really want to take my time with it. And that is Collapse by Jared Diamond. And this is How Societies Choose to Fail or Succeed is the subtitle here. So this is a nonfiction read, which 2 out of 3 of my books are here, Third Act and Collapse. But hi boy. So yeah, this one, the reason why this is a good segue for N.K. Jemisin is because on one of the interviews that I watched of her, she mentioned books that inspire her, and this one came up, and I definitely want to read the book that inspires the author who inspires me. So this one hopefully will help me. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that this one really helps me as I create my own worlds. I don't think that this one will only inspire this world. I actually bought this one to inspire a different world that I'm not working on yet, but something about it makes it, stop it! Cat and dog are chasing each other, but anyway. This one, stop it, hey, all right, good boy. So this one, what was I going to say? So on my list of books that I want to read, this one put itself at my third to the top of the list. Now I do have an audiobook that I still haven't finished, and I only just now remembered, so I'll probably also go ahead and finish that. I have 2 hours left of 5.5 hours, and that would be Richest Man in Babylon. So sorry, my dog is sneezing because there's vacuum powder on the floor and they're kicking it up by chasing each other. Luckily, it's pet safe. But anyway, so I wanted to read Collapse for my next world, but I am moving it up to now because reading has not, like I said, in 2021, reading has not been a priority for me, and I definitely want to get that back on the menu. And the reason why I chose this book is just because it's the next book after these two that I'm really thirsty to read. Like, obviously there's a lot of fiction reads that I want to get through, and even nonfiction reads, but a lot of those are more involved with what I want to do after I make certain money, or maybe after I get a house. I want to read a lot of those books. Some of them I definitely don't want to read until I'm done with my own fiction works, or at least getting to a certain level of comfortability with my worlds. So this one I still want to read while I'm kind of confused about how to make a world at all, and it will give me help, not with the book that I'm finishing currently, but with the follow-up to that story. And the world that I want to work on after I finish this world, I think is going to take major input, major advice from this. If I'm just guessing. I expect, though, for this book to have quite a lot of tabs in it and be something that I can reference again when I get to the other world that I'm creating. Now, the current world that I'm creating, like I said, it doesn't need it right now, but when I move into the next stages of it, I think I'll have a reason to include some advice from this book as well. I'm going to let the animal kingdom resume its animalia, and I know that's not English really, but I'm gonna get out of here for today.